And a pleasant good evening to you. Hope everything is going well, that you are enjoying your weekend so far. Welcome to The Words. I'm your host. I'm Keith Williams. And today, not The Words, I'm sorry. This is the Author Showcase. I'm getting my podcast mixed up. This is the Author Showcase, where we showcase book bloggers, video bloggers, and even publishers.
Mm-hmm.
So on today we have Dr. Dorothy McCoy, and according to her bio, she has 9 books in total that hopefully we'll be able to talk about on today. But the main book, of course, let me see if I can find it.
Here it is.
The mysterious guardian. Is that correct?
Mysterious Secret Guardians.
Mysterious secret guardians. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So according to our description, Dr. McCoy is also a former constable for the state of South Carolina and a member of a cold case squad. She has written 9 books in total. Dr. McCoy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I am very happy to be here.
So in your own words, tell the audience who you are.
Well, I'm a psychotherapist. I have been for a while now, specializing in trauma, first responders, anxiety disorders, and I'm also a writer.
Tell us a little bit about, you say you've written 9 books, but the main one is The Mysterious Secret Guardian.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that one first.
Okay, it's the first of a series of 3, and it tells how our gang of superheroes get together, how they come together in the beginning, and why they were. Of course, Winston Churchill, when you've got a problem, and it's a really, really big problem, you call Winston Churchill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem was he had been dead since 1965. And they also called Albert Einstein, who had been dead since 1955. But they had to come back. They were needed. So they are here. They're working on these cases. They're one of several teams around the world that keep us from blowing ourselves up and other things like that. They stay the hand that reaches for that red button. They stop us from inventing or using powerful weapons. They keep groups that are evil and would enslave us from being able to do it. So these teams keep our little world turning.
So who are the superheroes that's mentioned in your book?
Okay, there's, of course, Prime Minister Churchill. There's Dr. Einstein. There's an MI5 agent, David Smythe. David Smythe died the same year as Mr. Churchill. He was shot in the back of the head as he walked to his 1939 Rolls-Royce Phantom. There's also, not in this book, there are others coming along that will also be joining and some of them leaving, but there's a Great Dane, Harlequin Great Dane, who died in 2013. And there's also Bones, who is a psychotherapist, and she is part Wyandotte Indian.
Oh, that is very that is very unique. What type of superpowers do they have?
Well, now she doesn't have any. She's mortal. She's the only mortal on there. But the others have, they can be from one place to the other like that. They can make themselves where they can't be seen if they want to listen in on things. They can do just about anything they want to do. They can take on demons. They're powerful enough to take them on, maybe not defeat them. We needed a little more super to do that. Who comes in later? It's going to be a big surprise. So they can do just about anything that they want to do within reasons.
So what is the inspiration behind this particular book?
My inspiration for writing the book?
Yes.
Okay. I love Winston Churchill. He's my hero. He has been for years. I've read everything I could read about him. A lot of what he wrote, and he wrote a lot. He wrote a lot. Back then, politicians did not get rich serving the people. They did not become millionaires like they do now. He had the right to be able to feed his family. So he wrote a lot. And I wanted today, the people today, to understand who he was. And I use a lot of the quotes in the book. These are his quotes, a lot of them. Some of Dr. Einstein's quotes, who of course was the greatest scientist of the 20th century. So we have the greatest statesman, we have the greatest scientist, we have an MI5 agent who is a hunk, and we have a therapist who pretty much tells the story. She has no powers. She can't go from here to Europe like that. She has to fly in an airplane. So, but she tells the story, and she's the only one that can be killed or harmed in any way. They cannot be harmed. So she has a rough time of it. She really does. Because the bad guys are after her, since she's the only one that they can impact. And the bad guys are really bad. Dr. Joseph Mengele of Auschwitz is still with us. He developed a youth serum. He took it along with some of his odious people that he worked with, and they are back. They are here in our time, but because of the youth serum. Remember, he did a lot of experiments at Auschwitz, terrible experiments, terrible. But this particular one, they're still here. There's a number of them that they look exactly the way they did in 1944. They haven't changed at all. So my group is fighting them to make sure they don't try to bring back the Nazis. In fact, they want to bring back Hitler. They have some of his cells, viable cells. They want to clone and bring him back, and Goebbels and Himmler. And it's our job to make sure that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you what was some of the villains that is described in your book. Looks like you mentioned a few of them. Are there any others?
There are, when later on in the book, it mentions it in this one, but the other two books talk about them more. There's a secret organization of people that want to enslave the world, and they are working with Dr. Mengele, because he has no money. They have plenty of money. They're working with Dr. Mengele, Hans, and Franz, who worked with him at Auschwitz, and also Dr. Wagner, who worked with him at Auschwitz. So they're supplying all this money so he can do experimentation and buy big, wonderful labs. And so they will have to be dealt with, but they're not talked about specifically in this book. In the last book, they're named, and it's their turn.
So, when I'm hearing you answering these questions, several groups of superheroes come to my mind. You got the Justice League,
Uh-huh,
you got the Avengers,
uh-huh.
uh let's see, you got uh the Marvel superheroes. I think that's Spider-Man,
Yeah,
the Incredible Hulk.
uh-huh.
Uh,
Like the Hulk.
okay, so some of the so those are some of those are the three groups that that come to mind. Um,
These are
what so
different.
okay,
These are
so
different.
what separate your group of superheroes from the ones that we read in the comic books and we see in the movie?
Okay, they look just like they did when they were alive. Um, Churchill would be dressed in his three-piece suit with his little gold watch and his little handkerchief. Dr. Einstein looks like Dr. Einstein, wild hair and all. The Hulk. No, I've got a Hulk. They've got a Hulk. Anyway, he is extremely good looking. He wears his bomber jacket because back during World War II, he was a bomber pilot. All of these people look just like you, the two of us. You'd see them out on the street, nothing, you wouldn't pick up anything. Now they cannot change. Well, of course, each one of those that you mentioned, they have various things that they can do. They can't do everything. These can only do what they're allowed to do. They're not working on their own. They're working for Beyond. Beyond is where we go when we're no longer in this world. Beyond sent them back and they're backing them. And this is their one mission to accomplish. Now, there are other teams. John Kennedy has a team. Agatha Christie has a team. So there are a lot of teams out there, but they look just as we do.
These teams that you mentioned, are they in this book or they're going to be like in future books?
They only become invisible when, let's say, because some people think that they're alive, like MI5 and the Met in London. All of it is in London, okay? In the underground of London, the first book. Now, these organizations think David is alive. He changed his records, so they don't realize that he's been there since right after 1944. So that would make him awfully old. But they only become invisible, or he does. Let's say they're working on a case, my group, and the Met helps them. MI5 helps them because they have real people doing exactly what we would do on any case, like when I was with constables or the cold case squad, they're doing the same things. And so they can stand over David or Albert or Winston can stand over their shoulders and watch what they're doing and get the information if need be. And they go to other police organizations too to gather information. So they're doing it the old-fashioned way, but let's say they find out there's a clue in Romania. There's something they need to check on in Romania, they can be there like that. And they will do it the same way I would do it if I was working the case. They, the leather on the sidewalk.
When I was a kid, I was first introduced to the James Bond character who
Yeah.
he was an MI6 agent, and I
Uh-huh.
thought that, all of that was a myth. So I did some digging, I know the British Secret Service was real, I
Right.
knew that, but I thought all this MI5, MI6, all of that was was not real, you know,
Uh-huh.
until I read an article and they was talking about who's the real James Bond.
Uh-huh.
And they was talking about British agents,
Mm-hmm.
who whatever James Bond did, they did it for real.
They did. They
Mhm.
did. And there was a real queue that developed all of these crazy things. And in fact, he, by his real name, is mentioned in my third book. And the James Bond, the one they modeled after, I think he's in the second book, just briefly. But I like to give these guys the credit they're due. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of SOE.
No.
Okay. During World War II, back then it was very gentlemanly about how everybody behaved. There were rules about how you behaved in a war. Well, the problem was the Germans weren't following those rules. So Prime Minister Churchill started his own group who would sneak in behind the lines, and they would work like with the French resistance. They learned to fight with knives. So if they had to stop somebody quietly, they could do it. These were real heroes, the SOE. And so later on, two of my people I bring in are former SOE, and I talk about the real history of these things, like the miracle of Dunkirk. So all of those things I talk about in the book because they did some pretty amazing things that we're very proud of.
So I guess it's obviously that this book is fiction, correct? But there's like any like nonfiction elements in there, like any type of historical reference?
Absolutely. It is historical fiction with the paranormal. Now, I threw in the paranormal because it was just fun. It is fun. I mean, it just is. So now we're going back and forth between our time and World War II. We even spend a little time in World War I. But whenever we visit one of these things that happened, like the miracle of Dunkirk, then the history is real. And when I get into the science of cloning and how might we be able to make a youth elixir, the science is real up to the point of it. We haven't cloned a human being yet, but I give the science of how that could be done and what we would need going forward to do it. So all of that is real. I research.
So what are some of the audience readers rather reaction of this book? It certainly is. It sounds unique. I don't think I ever, ran across an author, that would, do something like this. I do remember when I was in high school, I wrote a historical short story for English class. And fortunately, it never materialized into a book. I don't know why. It didn't. But it was a story. It was a story of a British royal. It was a story of a British royal family who, obviously was in conflict with one another, and one of their colonies was in rebellion. And so this particular colony tried to invade Great Britain. They saw the government as being unstable. And they was thinking that this was the best time to invade the country. So he enlisted the help of a native, in that particular colony, to infiltrate the organization. And through her intelligence, Great Britain got the upper hand, and they put down the rebellion. As a reward, this young man ended up marrying her, and
Ah,
he moved he and she moved to London, where
uh-huh.
eventually the father died and he became the king. And so,
Wow.
she, became the queen.
Uh-huh.
The name of the short story was entitled India's Sorrow.
Uh-huh. Sounds very interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned that romance because there is a romance in here between the MI5 agent David Smythe and the psychotherapist. Now, she's alive, he is not. So it makes for a lot of interesting work because it's like they said in Fiddler on the Roof, a fish can love a bird, but where will they make their home? So there's a bit of a problem with them getting together.
Yeah, that reminds me of a movie that came out, I think, in the mid to late 70s. Was called The Obsession, where
Huh.
so this lady died. So there was a lady that died, and they had a pretty good romance, but the lady ended up dying, and
Uh-huh.
he became really depressed. And
Uh-huh.
so he was wishing that he could rekindle that romance, but she's dead, but her spirit came back to life and said, I'll give you a second chance.
Uh-huh.
But it turned very suspenseful after that.
Oh.
I didn't see the movie per se, but i saw the I saw the promo for it,
Uh-huh.
and it sounds like he would kind of regret having to rekindle that romance, even though he loved her.
Uh-huh.
He found that it was a big mistake. So I thought I
Ah.
just throw. So I just thought I just throw that in there. Now, in my short story, there was the two people, was actually alive, and the guy's
Mm-hmm.
name is Edward, and he's trying to save the kingdom from invaders who were from the India, which at that time was a British colony.
Uh-huh. Yes, it
So this is
was.
so this was actually set in the early 18th 19th century.
Uh-huh. An interesting period. So yes, there's a romance which continues through the entire series. My next book comes out in November, and then the one after that will be out first part of next year. And when I wrote the ending, all I can tell you was I cried through the whole thing. So
You cried
people
through the
just,
whole thing. What happened?
well, I can't tell you that. You've
Oh,
got to
you can't.
read that
Oh,
book.
you. I mean, I just thought I just thought. I mean, was it a happy ending? Was it a tragic ending?
Well, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you it is a shocker.
Okay, so the other two books that you read, is it like a
Yes,
continuing story? Okay, so it's a
right.
continuing story. Okay. So
But
what
as
is
uh-huh.
go ahead.
Well, as I said, I'll be bringing in other people. The people that are brought in, except for one, are alive. They pop up in the story as it goes along, and one of them, was not, but the rest were alive. So they, like Bones, could be killed or harmed. So it gave someone else. And there's one person in here I just love. His name is Druid, and he's huge. He's like almost 7 feet tall. He's got blonde hair and blue eyes, and he's huge. And he's loud. He's scary. He is scary. He's on their side, but he's always popping in. He just pops in, yells at them, and pops out again. So he's a lot of fun.
So this carriage of bones that you're talking about, does that have anything to do with the television series? Because I
Oh,
think one of
Oh,
the characters in that series is they call her Bones.
it,
Is
this is from a TV series, but not that one.
okay.
Star Trek had Dr. Bones McCoy. And so that Bones comes from that, not,
Oh, okay.
yeah, not the other.
Not the detective. Okay.
No, just they used to call doctors back in the day Sawbones, and then it just shortened to Bones.
Oh, but no, I didn't know that because I didn't know that because normally on the Star Trek series, everybody is called by their last name.
Yeah, usually he's called Bones. In the early series, the original series, I'm not
Okay.
sure about the updated ones. I don't know, but if I see every once in a while one on video or something. So if you get a chance, look at one with the original players, and Spock, Jim, and Bones were the three that were leading the show.
So what type of adventures that these characters, go on, like cases, or what exactly are some of their adventures?
Okay, when they're first given the assignment by Beyond, they have no idea where to find Mingling. Where in the world is he? So they start having to trace him down the way I would if I were looking for someone. And they go through their fights, they take over labs, it's just chaos off and on as they try to get this man. Now, remember, even though he's alive, he would be right at 100 years old. He's learned a lot in 100 years. So it's putting his brain, and he was a brilliant man. He was evil, but he was brilliant. So he is always trying to outsmart them. He doesn't realize that they were brought back. He thinks that someone just made them look like Einstein and Churchill to fool him, to make him think they had that power. He doesn't realize they really are dead. So it's a lot of back and forth between him and them, and blowing up things, and there's just adventure all through it.
You know what? I really can see this. I really can imagine this book being, a movie or something.
That's what everybody
Probably,
says.
probably a theatrical, movie. It'll probably be a kind of expensive movie, to make well. But I think the audience will, enjoy it. It's like really it's something different because
It is.
we
I've
we
had a lot of people say what you said.
and I haven't even read it yet, and based on what you told me, I come to those two conclusions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I can imagine that's one of the the responses that you get from readers. So what are some other responses have you got?
they become attached to the characters. The Harlequin Great Dane, who has all sorts of powers. She's an ancient entity. She's different from the others. She can do just about anything she needs to do. So now, she is my Great Dane, who I had for years, who died in 2013. So it was a thrill to me to bring her back, because it just broke my heart when she died. So now whenever I write one of these books, Sophie's right there with me. And she is amazing. A lot of people love her. A lot of people are attracted to, of course, Churchill or Einstein. Several have said they liked Bones because she is so in your face nothing scares her. She's been called in the book foolhardy, pretty much. She is. So people like the characters. Now, the lady that does my editing was a journalist for years and years and years. And she knew Dean Koontz, and she interviewed him and people like that. And she said that this book she had never read anything like it, that it was very unique to her. She loves the characters. She's become one of the guardians on the outside, but people just love the characters and what they're doing. And I believe in the basic. There's evil and there's good. I'm on the side of good. And I want good to win because it often does it in our world.
I'm curious to know where you get the title of the book from.
My agent and I sat down, well, we were on the telephone, but we went back and forth for maybe an hour trying to come up with a name for this. And we finally came up with that one.
Mysterious Secret Guardian.
That's right. They're always there. They're always protecting mankind. They don't always win. Now, they were trying to protect John Kennedy when he was killed, but they weren't able to do it. So they don't always win, but they try really hard, and they're, of course, very bright, very talented. But since he died, they put him on a team, so we still have him with us. Agatha Christie's team helps us every once in a while, and John Kennedy's team helps us every once in a while. I don't know the leaders of the other teams, but it gets into a lot of things.
What are some of the themes that is displayed in this book?
The themes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's always the overriding good against evil. Now, they were given a prime directive, which has been a problem at times. You never kill a living human unless you're saving an innocent. If an innocent is about to be killed, then you can kill. But unless that is the case, you cannot kill. So that is throughout. They have principles, and Bones almost got in trouble with that one time. Fortunately, the guy didn't die. The other themes are we honor. In Churchill's time, honor was an important word. You were an honorable person. There were standards in society. You didn't lie, you didn't cheat, you didn't steal. Your word was your bond, those types of things. So those come out throughout. And also that good has an advantage over evil. Might not be this time, but eventually good will win out.
So this is kind of like the real life struggle between good and evil. Exactly.
And most of the time, the people on the team have to do the same things that you and I were doing if we were detectives and we were trying to solve a case.
I'm curious to know where the inspiration came from when you have chosen these characters.
Well, of course, Churchill, I loved Churchill. He is an amazing man, absolutely amazing. And of course, Dr. Einstein is amazing, and he's needed throughout the 3 books when something of a scientific nature comes up, and it does fairly often. So the MI5 agent, I just wanted someone that I could make up myself. The other 2, I have to make them do things that they would do in real life, and I try to do that. But this one, I could do anything with him. He's very honorable, he's very brave, he's very dedicated, energetic, handsome. And so I wanted somebody like that as with Bones. So there would be that romance too throughout the series, because I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. And she almost always had some little romance in her books.
So if I would have to place this book in a genre, what genre would this book fall under?
Well, it is historical fiction, but it is also paranormal. So I had to pretty much put those two together, paranormal, historical fiction. And I've had some people review it that were into paranormal romance, where one of the people was not alive. It really wouldn't fall into that because it's something that's more behind the scenes and it's talked about in little pieces. And of course, paranormal romance would be that's what it's about. But no, this one just has a little bit of that.
So the paranormal romance you're talking about, does that remind you of the movie Ghost?
Oh, I love the movie Ghost. Yeah. No, not really. Now, I think they just kind of fell into some things. And of course, Whoopi Goldberg helped them because she was able to get through. But they were not on a mission of any sort. He was just killed because of the whole money angle. And these people are on a mission. These are remarkable people.
Okay, so you got action, you got adventure, you got mystery. So there's a lot of detective stuff in here. Stop me if I'm wrong. Okay. Like I said, I haven't read the book yet, but based on your answers, that's what I came up with. So,
and you're right.
And you have been a detective yourself,
well,
right?
I wasn't a detective. I worked at the Criminal Justice Academy. Okay. And I volunteered at the Sheriff's Department in the cold case squad because they had all of these packs of cold cases, but they had not been arranged in any way they could actually be worked. So I went in there, went through the whole file, and they were those accordion files. And I would write it up in a way that the detectives could then follow. This is where the cars are. These were the weapons. These were the witnesses. This is what happened. This is where the evidence is now. So I gained a lot of knowledge doing that, but I was not out in the field.
Okay. I'm surprised that people like Charlie Chan or Sherlock Holmes are not in any of your books. I think they're great detectives.
They are, but they were alive, and most of mine are dead. So I'm sure they're dead by now. I love Sherlock Holmes. I love the way he does things. I think every law enforcement officer should have to read those books because he, and I think they use that at the academy. I know I did in teaching, but I wanted the best of the best, and Einstein and Churchill are the best of the best. And they're not detectives by, neither one of them were a detective. The only one that had the law enforcement experience, well, two, Bones and David, because he worked for MI5 before he was shot in the back of the head. So they know the detective work, the police work, and the other two are just brilliant. They come up with the plans and things like that.
And you said there's a real quartermaster or Q?
Yes, yes. The person, and I read that not too terribly long ago because he's in the third book, the person that they used as a model for Q was brilliant. He kept a low profile for whatever reason. Maybe he didn't want to get killed, but he was absolutely brilliant. And so I talk about the real person in the third book, name him and talk about some of the things that he actually invented, like shoe brushes that were more than a shoe brush, hairbrushes, all kinds of innocuous little things and pens that could be used as weapons.
Right, just like in the James Bond series where you have Q
Uh-huh.
making all these crazy gadgets, and he's always on, the underground. Now, every now and then you may see him out in the field,
Uh-huh.
but for the most part, Q is always, behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Now, that only comes up a little bit because I think there was once that they actually needed something to develop they could use, because you've got to remember, you can't kill these people except for bones. So if they can get their hands on someone, because they're much stronger than they would have been when they were alive, they're very strong. And so they could take out anybody they needed to take out. Now, there are a couple of superhuman figures in there that they could not. It takes somebody at a higher level. So I had to bring in somebody at a higher level to take care of the superhuman, like demon. Demons are tough.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. But I can't tell you about him because he doesn't show up as himself until the third book.
Okay, so the other two books are not out yet.
No, the first one, the one after this one should be out in November. That's the Mysterious Secret Guardians at Owl Mountain, which is in Poland. And so they're there to try to keep the world from being destroyed. And then the last one is called Mysterious Secret Guardians, the final chapter. Then all of these lines that I have been drawing and weaving together have to be resolved. And I don't resolve everything in here in this book or everything in the second book. The ones that are left at the end are resolved in the third book.
I'm curious to know, with that story that I told you, that short story that I wrote, in English class. I'm curious to know, should I pursue writing a novel,
Sure.
on that? Because there is a sequel.
Sure.
There's a sequel to that short story. It's called King Edward's Courtyard. And it talks about the reign of Edward in the first book, of course, who is still married to the lady that he brought from India.
Yeah, I would definitely pursue it. Now, this is what helped me to write a book, and it might help you.
Okay.
I had written, the other books were self-help books because I'm a psychotherapist. But this, I could not write fiction. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Then I read this article by Dean Koontz, and he said, because most people make an outline, this happens in this chapter, I couldn't do that because I didn't know what was going to happen. So he said, create really good characters, fill them out completely, what they do, what they wouldn't do, all of those things, to what they wear, what they eat. You've got a full character. When you create them, they write the book. And that's exactly what happened with my 3 books. The characters, I didn't know what was going to happen until they did it.
So how long did it take you to write this, write this book? Because I know with, any type of fiction novel, it's probably going to take a really long time to actually put something together. Was that your case?
No, I wrote all 3 of them within a year and a half.
Within a year and a half? Wow.
I'm fast. I
don't think that I would be able, to do that. I mean, I'm not really a fiction kind of author. I'm more of a nonfiction, type of person. So I'm a poet, so I write poetry.
You can write, if you can write poetry, you can write fiction. You've already got your characters, fill them out completely, their likes, their dislikes, their temperaments. And sit down and let them do their thing. They will do it.
So with this first book that you have written, how long did it take you to write it?
Oh, it was probably about 6 months.
6 months. Yeah, I kind of figured that. I kind of figured it would, probably take longer to write a fiction book than it is a
Yeah,
nonfiction book.
yeah.
Uh,
But remember now, I work full time. I'm a psychotherapist. I see clients during the week. I have a full load, probably 100 altogether. So I'm busy with that in my house and my dog and all of this sort of thing. So I had to do that when I had the time, like maybe on the weekends.
oh my goodness. I mean, you mean to tell me you have a full schedule and you still managed to write this book of such a
Mhm.
unique magnitude?
Yep. Yep. I fell in love with my characters, and I'll probably write a fourth book, because if I don't, my characters are going to die. They're going to be gone. Nobody will be writing about them anymore. So I will probably write a fourth book and maybe a fifth book. Who knows?
I mean, do you see any of these novels in like maybe a comic book or something?
Actually, I don't know if I sent it to you or not, but I had a graphic designer draw each one of these people, how they would look as a graphic. So she drew one. Now, some of them are people I haven't mentioned yet because they're in later books, but I'll have to send that to you when we finish. So I know what each one of them, of course, I knew about the top two because they were real, but it shows what each one of these people look like. Each one of the characters, could they go in a comic book? Sure they could.
Is that something that you might consider? I think it's a good idea.
Well,
Really,
I don't know much about it. I really don't. I know as a kid, I loved comic books. I just, I read a lot of those, but I don't know that much about it, to tell you the truth.
I really think that's a good idea that you should pursue having these characters in a comic book. You probably just have to find like you said, a graphic designer or something that would be willing to collaborate with you on something
Mhm.
like that. But I think it's a really good idea. And who knows, it may become a movie.
Well, a lot of people have said they could see this as a movie, that
Yeah.
they, and reading it, they could see in their minds what's going on. And so they said they thought it would make a really good movie. One of the characters, I haven't introduced him yet because he doesn't come in until the second book. He looks like Clint Eastwood. He's except much old. Well, no, Clint Eastwood's old now. But anyway, he looks like Clint Eastwood, except he's real and he's a MI5 agent. He comes up later on. And so they can, and I'll say this, when he walked in the door, he looked like an older Clint Eastwood, with all the hair and everything. So people can see the characters, they come alive in their brains. No, nobody's mentioned cartoons, but that's not a bad idea. They have mentioned movies, but I never thought about cartoons, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I can see this being a cartoon, too, because growing up, I used to watch. I mean, as far as superhero movies, superheroes concerns, you have in the 70s, you had the Super Friends.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the mid 70s, you had you had a guys called Hong Kong Fooey.
Uh-huh.
Back in the mid 70s. Of course, I was too young when it came out, but I remember as a youngster, maybe about 2 or 3 years old, that I used to watch it in syndication. Uh, and then in the 80s, you had folks like Spider-Man
Mhm.
and his amazing friends. You had the Incredible Hulk. In the 90s, you have the X-Men. of course.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah,
You know,
that's,
before, you know, you had the Batman, you had
yeah,
the Aquaman, you had.
the problem with most of the superheroes that are out there, they need a super villain.
Mhm.
And most of the villains in my books are human. They might be 100 years old and look 40, but they're human until I get toward the end. And then we have like a super villain. But they are, it's pretty much doing what we would do, looking for real humans that just happen to be evil, just evil. And evil people are
Now
out there.
that kind of reminds me of the original Batman series too, where all the, you know, the criminals, you know, that they
Uh-huh.
deal with, they're human.
That's
You know,
true.
they're human. You know, they're human. You got the Penguin, you got Catwoman, you got who was the Joker, the Riddler,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I guess for me, you know, if I had to be a villain, I would like to be Mr. Freeze.
I think that would probably be a good villain. Now, the Joker he was a character you could laugh at originally, but then the Joker later on in the Batman movies, he was scary. He was really
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. The Joker character like really evolved, you know, over the years. When he
Uh-huh.
first came out, you know, he was like this comical, you know,
Exactly.
he was like this comical type person, you know, even when you know, the Batman theatrical franchise came out in the late 80s, you know, he
Uh-huh.
was, you know, still resembled the Joker of the 60s. You know,
Uh-huh.
but when the franchise had rebooted itself, the Joker had became a very dark character.
He was very, very dark. And I understand the last movie was the darkest. I've not seen it, but I understand it's getting even darker.
Yeah,
But
he kind of reminds me of Pennywise from It.
who?
Pennywise from Stephen King's It.
I didn't read it. I've read a lot of Stephen King. He scared me to death with Pet Sematary, but I didn't read that one.
I didn't read the book. I actually saw it was a mini series actually.
Oh, I didn't see
It
it
was a
either.
mini series that came out in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, it was kind
Oh.
of scary.
Oh, he's a scary guy.
So that's what the present Joker, he kind of reminds me of Pennywise.
Uh-huh.
You know, he had that laugh, but he had that laugh, but it wasn't like a comical laugh. It was, it was, his laugh was like real, scary because you didn't know what you don't know what he's going to do or what he's capable, of doing. So that's what that reminds me of. So it was a, big evolution from the Joker that I remember, from the 60s that I used to enjoy, watching in syndication. But this is very unique. I don't think I ever heard, anything of this magnitude, before. You really got me curious, to, read the book.
Good. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, being a psychotherapist, I speak at conferences on narcissists and psychopaths. So the bad guys, I am able, because sometimes we're listening in on their thoughts in my book, and I can do psychopaths because I know how they think. I can do narcissists because I know how they think. So it gives that realism to the bad guys. They may not be able to do superhero stuff or supervillain stuff, but they are evil.
Right, kind of like right, kind of like in Superman, you got Lex Luthor. You know,
Uh-huh.
he's a human being, but he supposedly, be one of, have one of the greatest criminal minds, in the world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can put him, in that category. But then on the other hand, you have this super villain, they call him Darkseid,
Uh-huh.
something, a clear, contrast between Darkseid, which was not, in any live action, movie. He appeared in the comics, and he appeared in, several incarnations of the, animation series. But Lex Luthor, he's you'll see him, no matter what type of,
Yeah.
what type of media. It could be comic books, it can be film, it can be TV,
Mhm.
whatever. You would always find him.
Mhm.
And this guy is human.
Yeah. Yeah.
You, you know,
He's
you know,
he's not terribly dark though.
no,
He,
no, no.
yeah. Now, one of mine is, well, several of them are it's very, very dark. These people are, they're Ted Bundy. They're dark.
That going I know we got a few more minutes left, but let's talk a little bit about, what you have done in the past. Being a constable. What was that like? Because I know all constables are not alike.
No, no, I was a state constable here in South Carolina. You have to go through training, law enforcement training, usually done by a sheriff's department, and you're appointed by the governor, and you can work under any law enforcement agency in the state, but I couldn't just go out there on my own. I have to be under sheriff's department, police department, something like that. So I did that for a number of years. That's volunteer. You don't get paid for that. You ride
So
along.
is that like does each county have one?
It's not according to, you can have any number of constables. There's not a top number. Usually it's from the county, but like I said, you work under one of the departments, and you have a uniform that is, even if I were to work with the sheriff here, I would wear the constable uniform, which is entirely different than the department I'd be working under. And you don't get paid. You go out there, risk your life. I wore a gun, I wore a badge, but you're not
Wore a
paid
gun
for it.
and you wore and you're not. Wow. Because I'm here in Alabama. Obviously,
Oh,
I'm in Alabama, and constables in Alabama are a lot different than
really?
it is in South Carolina. Yes. So roughly there are 105. There are 105 constables in the state of Alabama.
Huh.
Each one is attached to a state House of Representatives district. So every every state House of Representative district has a constable.
I'll be darned. That
And
is different.
there are 105 members of the state House of Representatives in the state of Alabama. And each district has its own constable, which are elected every 4 years.
Huh.
And
Yeah,
they're
that's
always,
entirely.
they're elected every 4 years
I'll be darned.
during the general election.
Huh.
So
That's
presidential, so they are elected, some are elected during the midterms, some
uh-huh.
are elected, during the general election, the presidential election, and their duties are far more different
Uh-huh.
than than is in South Carolina. And constables in Alabama actually get paid. So they get paid here.
That's nice.
I don't know how much, but they get
Uh-huh.
paid, and they usually are paid monthly.
Uh-huh. I'll be
But
darned. Yeah, that's
yeah, but
entirely
it's
different.
yeah, and a lot of what they do has nothing to do, with law enforcement. They don't wear a uniform. They don't. They work with law enforcement, on on some things, but they usually, carry out. Um, how should I put this? I know one thing they do is that they serve important papers. They
Uh,
work with law enforcement on certain activities, but they don't carry a gun, and they don't wear a uniform, and they're not involved, in any type of criminal investigations, or
mhm.
anything like that. It's kind of like you're a court reporter or a researcher
Huh.
on steroids.
That's interesting.
But they do, yeah, but
Mhm.
they do work with law enforcement on the local level, I mean the city level, the county level, and
Oh,
sometimes the state level, depending on what the issue is. But as far as being a law enforcement officer,
uh-huh.
that's not the case with a constable here in
Uh,
Alabama.
I decided to become a constable because I presented to law enforcement. I talked to them about different things, wellness and all, how to think logically, how to control your emotions, things like that. So a Sergeant Gowell, he said, hey, why don't you take the training and get out there yourself and you'll understand what it's like. And he said that to me several times. So finally I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And I did. And it was an eye opener. It really was.
So you really got to see what law enforcement, was really all about. And it's
Mhm.
not based on what you see on TV or what you
Yeah,
see, what you read about on social media.
exactly. Exactly. Between the academy where I worked, I developed their master instructor program. That's why I was hired there. So I developed that. It was one of three in the country at that time. The other one was in California. I don't remember where the third one was. So that's why I was there. But then I got caught up in this, and then I started working in that cold case squad, which also was volunteer. I didn't get paid for that. I just volunteered my time to do it because I was pretty good at organizing it and put it in a succinct way that somebody could pick up my report and just go down it to work on the case, whatever the case happened to be.
So you got all this stuff going on here. When do you sleep?
I'm not at the police academy anymore, and I'm not a state constable. I am in the state guard, South Carolina State Guard, in case there's some sort of horrible emergency. I'm in the medical unit, but I'm not doing either one of the law enforcement right now. I don't have time for it. As you said, I must sleep now and again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a relief. So uh, we are definitely a little bit over time, but
Oh,
uh, yeah,
but
I
this
mean,
was
it's,
fun.
but yeah, this was great.
Yeah.
Um, if anyone wanted to purchase this book or any future books that you have,
Uh-huh.
um, how would they be able to purchase this book?
They could put my name, Dorothy McCoy, into Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Uh, my website is mysteriousSecretGuardians.com. They can go on there. And there's some information, blogs, and different thing for members. Either way, they could do it either way. And I'd love for them to do it. I love to hear from readers. That is so exciting to me. What did you like about the book? Was there anything you would have changed? What do you think about the characters? I love that. So when you read it now, you got to get in touch with me so I can ask you.
Oh yeah, I definitely have your email, so And
Yeah,
I'm
you
definitely interested in, reading a book. I mean, the title just grabbed. It's kind of like it's kind of like, what are some great, titles for, action movies? Let,
did.
let, let me think. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Mhm.
That's a good, that's a good title.
Pet
Uh,
Cemetery was a good title, I thought.
well, I mean, yeah, we talking about, yeah, I'm referencing to, the genre that your book
Oh,
falls, on,
yeah.
like the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
uh, I said League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Uh, I can't think of it on the top of my head, but you get the idea, right?
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
The full title is Mysterious Secret Guardians in the London Underground. So that adds another element.
You're right. And fourth book, and characters, fourth book, you
Okay,
decide to write it.
I didn't get that. Could you say that again? Because you were pinging in and out.
Um, yeah, I think, and if there is a fourth book, what type of characters do you have in mind for that book?
It will be the characters that I have now, because the ones I told you about are just a few. I now have about 6 or 8 that come and go. So they would be in there. I would probably introduce maybe another character or two. You've got to have some people that can be killed. You can't have any suspense if nobody can be killed or harmed. So I keep putting mortals in.
Right.
And I'm not sure, I haven't really thought of, well, I have too, but I can't tell you because I would be revealing the end of the third one. But the fourth one is going to be interesting.
That's fair enough. I mean, I don't want you to, I don't want to ask any questions to where, the answer might be a spoiler alert.
Yeah, we want people to be surprised.
So, that, being folks, you know, so one of the things we'll probably be doing is that, if we're able to grab, purchase some of these books or
Uh-huh.
get a hold of some of these books from the authors, that one day, I would do, we'll have a show or two to where we'll just be reviewing books.
Uh-huh.
So that may be something, to consider. Maybe at the end of the year or something, the author showcase will, select a couple of books and we'll just do a review of it. That will probably be something the last Saturday of the month before we go into 2023.
Oh,
And
good.
then every year, and then every year after that, the last Sunday of every year, that out of all the people that we have on the show,
Uh-huh.
on the podcast, we'll choose a handful of them and we'll just
Me,
do a review.
me.
So so what we'll do is that I'll reach out to all of the authors that we had in the past,
Uh-huh.
and say, hey, we're gonna do a book review at the end on the last Saturday of the month. If you would like to be considered, please submit a copy of your book, and then we'll choose maybe about 4 or 5,
Uh-huh.
and we'll do a review. So that's something that I thought about.
Good. And my
Doing.
second one will be out by then because it's coming out in November.
coming out in November. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your website again.
Is Mysterious Secret
So your
Guardians,
website again.
mysterioussecretguardians.com.
You already got me interested in reading this book now. It's kind of like a sensationalist, escapist, type of ordeal, that you have. Not saying that it's an escape from, reality. That's
Uh-huh.
not what I mean. That's what I mean. I don't, that's not what I mean. What I
Uh-huh.
mean is that, it is unique in nature, and with a world that we're living in right now,
Mhm.
I think it would be great if we're able to, escape into another world and,
Mhm.
kind of see the world from a different lens. So they
Absolutely.
call they got some, it gives people a way to own life, to see what other perspectives or worldviews there are, out there. I think that was a common thing back in the, 70s, where you had a lot of movies that were sensational or, escapist in nature. And
Mhm.
it really, it really gave people, it really tapped into people's imagination. TV
Mhm.
shows too, like the Twilight Zone
Oh my
or the
goodness.
or the Outer Limits.
Uh-huh.
Just to give an example, or a most recent one that was very popular, the X-Files.
Yes. Yes. That was a good show. I've seen that a
Yeah,
few times. Mhm.
yeah. So those are some kind of examples, that we can say that they're sensational or escape, you know,
Mhm.
in there, as well. But you're able to, it was all fantasy. So you're able to escape, from a normal world,
Mhm.
into something that's different and unique. And
Mhm.
so, when I discovered this pitch, I kind of knew that that falls under uh, this same train of thought. So
Uh-huh.
uh,
You're right.
I'm hooked. I can't wait to purchase. I can't wait to purchase the book.
Well, now I sent a Kindle, so somebody's got the Kindle there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. It is available on. It is available on Amazon Kindle,
Uh-huh.
as well. Okay, yeah. So you can get it in the printed version.
Um,
Was on Kindle. You can download it on your Kindle. I mean, I have.
yeah, and I sent the Kindle one. So somebody there's got it.
Okay, and we're going to end here.
Okay.
Um, Dr. McCoy, I just want to thank you for, being on the show. This was definitely a treat for me, uh, because I to got to hear what type of, the uniqueness of this book,
Uh-huh.
and I'm intrigued. I'm now intrigued to, purchase it. I'm quite sure that you had a lot of people uh, that kind of said something on the similar lines, what I'm saying. I mean, you got me curious now. I want to read this book.
Mhm. Uh-huh. I really have, and it's exciting to think about new readers because I want them to have a good time. I'm a therapist. I want you have a good time. And hopefully this will be one way to do it.
So would you say that this book is like therapeutic in nature?
In a way, because one, we learn about psychopaths. They're out there. They're very charming. They cause a lot of damage to people. So it kind of gives them an idea what to look for. There's that, I know that these people in the end are going to win. And if they win, I win. Because we want that. We want the good guy to win. And we don't always get that. So it's therapeutic in that way.
Oh, you know what? you know what that reminds me of
What?
now. It's a James Bond film. It's the last film that Roger Moore starred in back in 1985. It's called A View to a Kill. And the villain, the main villain in this movie, you've already described him.
Really?
Know? Yeah, his name is Zorn, Max Zorn. So he's an entrepreneur, he's an industrialist, and he's good looking, but he's a psychopath.
They're often attractive. And
they're attractive, and this guy had a high IQ.
Yeah.
And it was basically it was a Russian he was part of a Russian experiment that went wrong. He had a high IQ, but he turned out to be a psychotic. And he wanted to take over the world's microchip market by destroying Silicon Valley, which is outside of San Francisco.
Right. Huh. That's an, yes. I didn't see any of the James Bond except the last few with Daniel Craig. Those are the only ones I've seen.
You're right. I used to have the whole collection. I think it's like up into Skyfall, that I had. I think I lost most of them. So I had to start all over again.
Darn.
Yeah, but I had the classic ones with Sean Connery and Roger Moore. Then I had the Timothy Daltons, the Pierce Bronson. I had them all up into Skyfall.
That's nice to, well, I guess you'll have to recollect them, but it's nice to have that ongoing theme. The people in the past, the books I've enjoyed the most are ones where it goes on. It might only go on for 2 or 3 books, like Dean Koontz' Odd Thomas. There were 2 or 3 of those, and you get to love the characters. So you get the book so you can find out what the character's up to. I like that continuity.
Right, and another character, of course, he hasn't evolved during the Daniel Craig area. What was his name? Blofeld. So he's played by a different person now, but he's played by different. But during the Daniel Craig era, Blofeld gotten more. So his character is more darker and more psychotic than the Blofeld in the past.
Yeah, it was that the one that they locked up, but he managed to get out, and that something had happened to his face, and he was he was evil.
That was he was pure evil. That's the big contrast. That's a big contrast to Charles Gray, who played Blofeld in the 70s. That's a total contrast. Even Telly Savalas version of Blofeld in 1969, couldn't even compare to the Blofeld of today. It was in 2015 when Spectre, came out, which reintroduced evil organization that's built on world domination, was reintroduced in 2015. Hence the name.
Right, and I've got one of those organizations. They're evil. They're not, well, yeah, they are criminal, but it's primarily their ideology. You know, we should run the world, and we'll do it right. You just do what we tell you. Power gone mad.
Is it right? But you know, this Blofeld, you know, he kind of reminds me of. I mean, he's not the Joker, but
Uh-huh.
they share similar characteristics. Like, you know, he's dark. The character is a dark character. Is psychotic in nature.
Yep.
You know, and you know, he represents, you know, a real dark brand of evil.
Yeah, he's definitely a psychopath. And I in one of my counseling books, The Manipulative Man, I talk about psychopaths and narcissists and antisocial. These people, you better be able to identify them because they can do harm.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this today with you. I appreciate you having me on here, and I've just enjoyed it so much.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to, you know, be a part. Is like I said, it's been a treat. Something, you know, very unique that we don't get from other authors. You know, but then again, you know, the authors that come on here, they always bring something unique to these podcasts. So it's not like your, you know, traditional shows, you know, where you have, you know, people that are supposed to be well known and powerful and all of that. So, you know, if we get them on these podcasts, you know, that's fine.
Oh, yes.
That's fine. If they want to be on these podcasts, you know, that's fine. You know, but people like you, for example, you know, I really think that brings fire. You know, brings fire to these podcasts because the people that comes on here, the audience said, well, you know, I can relate to this guest, you know, in some way. So it's like ordinary. So when you have ordinary people doing these interviews on these podcasts, the audience tend to relate to them more, you know, than someone, let's say that you got former President Obama, you know, they come. I mean, surely that would be a huge boost, you know, to the shows, but you know, when it comes to, being able to relate to what they're going through,
Yes.
you know, people like you set the standard, you know, for that. And that's why I like to invite people like you to, you know, be on these podcasts because people, you know, somehow they'll be able to relate, you know, what that person's going through or what that person has written, their occupation. Um, you know, we can have a community organizer, you know, on here. And someone said, well, you know, I'm a community organizer. I can relate to that. And so those are the people that we tend to invite on these podcasts because people that are watching, in some way, they can relate to the guests. So again, Dr. McCoy, thank you so much for, you know, being on the show and looking forward to reading your book.
Thank you so much. And after you do, let me know. I'll be waiting to hear from you.
I sure will. And that will end the author showcase for, you know, this Saturday. Of course, next week, we got another great author that will be on here. Looking forward to that. And I hope that you will tune in next Saturday. That's 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Until then, have a great Saturday.
Bye, sir.